Welcome to the tool walkthrough video on Twine, an open source tool for creating branch logic games and telling nonlinear stories. What we'll do in this video is we'll go over the instructions and then step by step show you how to use Twine to make your own essay. Then we'll look at an example, and at the end, we'll conclude with looking at the grading criteria and the rubric for this. Where the previous assignments were completion assignments, this will be your first one that looks for specific criteria to be met. And so we'll end with that. First, let's navigate together to where you find the assignment. So you'll be in this week and you go to Twine on Essay. Now, if you ever see just the introduction, that means there's going to be more details for you. The introduction is more of giving you a sense of why are we doing this and introducing you to the main ideas of the assignment. To get at the actual step-by-step details of the assignment, click Add Submission. And once that comes up, you'll have the assignment details. And don't worry, when you click Add Submission, you haven't actually submitted it yet. You aren't losing any chances to send this assignment in. You're just going to the page that gives the details because you won't have it sent until you do Save Changes. And so this is broken up into different steps where you create the project, you add a past writing assignment to the project, then you revise, and then you submit the assignment. And we'll go through all those steps right now. So let's start with creating a project. What you'll need to do is navigate to twinery.org, which we have over here on the right of the screen. You have the option to download the app or using the browser. I suggest using the browser because this is something where you're practicing with the tool, and it's always best when you're getting used to something to not worry about having another thing on your device. But you're welcome to do whichever you prefer. When you're using the browser, make sure that you archive and save it as you go along because what it's doing is it's keeping itself in your browser cache. And so if you have anything be reset, you could lose it. And we'll talk about that as we do this project. So let's go ahead and click Use in your browser. So once you're in this area, once you've clicked Use in the browser, you're then ready to start creating. And there's a lot of stuff going on here that you might not need to use. And what we'll do is we'll tell you what the tabs are as you go through them and what you need to press. So now we're in the Story tab. What you'll do there is you'll click New. That'll create a new story. And then you're going to name it. And so what can make that easiest for me to make sure that when I'm looking at all of them to make sure I keep it straight is if you can maybe just put your last name and then Twine on Essay. Don't worry about being fancy in your naming conventions. You'll be able to say something that fits more what you're trying to say in your essay in the cards themselves. Then click Create. All right, so now we're in the main area where we get to edit with Twine. And so what you have is these cards or passages. When people write about Twine, they use both those interchangeably, but so this will be a passage. And what you'll do is you can double click on any that you're ready to work on. And notice there's a green rock right here. That means that this is the first passage that a user will come to. Now, the first thing you'll do is you'll rename this untitled passage. So you have it selected, go up to rename up here. Click that. And what you can do here is you can name it whatever you want this essay to be called. It could be the name of your previous essay. Completely up to you. This is your project. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing in, as an example, an article I'm working on. So once I'm in there and it's renamed, I then double click on it and see it's already here. And when you double click on any passage, it should pop up in kind of a sidebar here. Now there's lots of stuff in here that you could use and do different things. You have lots of control of Twine of how it looks. That's not expected for this assignment. You're mainly going to be working in this text area right here. Now, once I'm in this area, once I've created the Twine project, once I've added my first card and I have a blank space here, that's when we're going to start bringing in our previous writing. You're welcome to choose any sort of past writing assignment. And we're in this area of the project right now, adding past writing to the project. You can bring in a past assignment At university level, you can bring in a past assignment in previous coursework you did in high school or before. And it could even be something else. Let's say if you have a hobby that involves writing, you can do that. Basically, anything you've written before in a different context, you're going to bring into this context because we're practicing to see what using this digital tool can do in the spirit of play and experimentation. So the first thing to do is that once you've chosen whatever past writing you're going to integrate, is to copy the first paragraph and just paste that right in there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to turn each paragraph of your past writing into a new card, a new passage. So now you have the first one. Next, take a look at your next paragraph and say, what would I say that is? What would I call that to invite another person to continue reading? So you can have a name for your next paragraph, or you can just say, hey, continue reading. The trick is you need double brackets, opening and closing brackets. What that does is whenever you do that, it makes another card. See how one got added right there? And that's an option. That's how this makes a branch logic game for you, like a choose your own adventure. And it's how we're going to give our readers options of where they go next. And so anything else I did, if I ever do double brackets, put in sample passage and close those brackets, I put this down, see, it added another one. So that's what you're going to be doing here, is making branches like that. So for the continue reading one, that'll be my next paragraph. I can go ahead and X out of here, double click there. There we go. Now I'm going to get my next paragraph. And I'm just going to paste that right in there. And that's what you can do, so on and so forth, while you're making the first part of this, when you're adding your past writing. And you're going to repeat that until every paragraph of your project is presented by a card or a passage. So for once you create a project and add the past writing, you've gone through kind of the foundations of this. Next, we're going to go on to revising with Twine, of using Twine to rethink how this works. So here's the first step of that. Go ahead and close the last one you're working on. You'll have more than me because you'll probably have a larger writing project. I'm using an abstract for one of my writing projects, so I only have 2 paragraphs for it. So I'm going to go back to my first one, my title one. And what I'm going to add in there, I do 2 brackets to open it, about me. And that will then see it added another one right here. Go ahead and close that and go into here. What you're going to do is you're going to add a short bio that includes this one sentence explaining your interest in the topic of your own essay. So to give us just a short bio, and then something that explains why you're interested in the topic of this essay. I'm going to copy one of mine in, and we'll see how that looks in this one. So what I've done here, though, is more than you'll have to do. You're seeing some different HTML in there. Not expected of you, but I wanted to show you that you can do stuff like that. It does respond to markup language, and we'll see that when I play this for you at the end. All right, it takes part of that first part where you're sort of saying, why am I interested in this? Who am I? Then what we want to do is we want to find 2 passages that rely on outside research and link to other passages that give citations for those sources. So let's say I'm in this continue reading passage and I'm thinking, I really want them to know about Nodding's educational caritas. Nell Nodding, if you've heard of her before, she's someone who came up with, or one of the founders of, a view of ethics called feminist care ethics. And so I'm going to link to that. So maybe I'll say, read more about care ethics. I'll close it off. And remember, that makes a new one for me. There it is. It just popped up. I'll close this and I'll go in here and I will put in the citation for that. Don't worry about hanging an indent or anything like that. What we're doing here is just practicing a way to kind of give access to information in different ways. So where in a linear essay, like the one that you write in your word processing and you turn in, where you have references at the end, in a nonlinear essay, you're able to kind of put the references in where they're needed by the users. Now we can get to the fun stuff. Once you've practiced with that, you're next going to select 3 of your passages. And you're going to then choose different external media. This can be videos, this can be podcasts, this can be websites, and you're going to add that media with an embed code. So again, you're not going to have to write anything. You don't need to know any HTML for this. You're going to copy it from a provider. So if you ever shared a YouTube video, you've done this before. So let's say I go back to this continue reading one. And we add in some care ethics, but let's say I talk about Beats' world-centered approach. Maybe I can say something like, learn more about world-centered education. And again, the closing and opening brackets, it makes a new passage for me. Let's find out where that is. Oh, there it is. So I double click that. Now what I need is an embed code. So I have this podcast right here. This is where this thinker talks about that. So it's an easy way for my users or readers to learn about this. I'm going to click on share, and this is dependent on different interfaces. But usually you'll have an embed. So when you look for share, don't use the link, because what that'll do is that'll just put a link in there. And then your user, I mean, they can work with that and say, oh, there's a link. They can take it, copy it, paste it into their browser window. But you want to make this more kind of visually compelling for your users. So look for if there's an embed option. There it is. All I need to do is copy this, go back into Twine, and paste it right in here because it'll respond to HTML. You don't have to work on any of this. I'm not going to evaluate you on whether how many pixels it is. You don't have to be able to read any of this or worry about this. Just go with the embed code. I'm just seeing if I'm thinking more of like which ones are you selecting and more about your reflections. So let's say if I want a video too. Go back to this first one. I quote a philosopher, Jacques Maritain. You know what? What if I want them to learn more about him? Again, I want to make choices. Learn more about Maritain's philosophy. Close brackets, and now I'll have it. You can call it whatever you want, however you want to lead through. You're kind of in a rhetorical situation whenever you make any sort of game experience of thinking through how can users work through that. Now that I had that, I'll close this. And there it is. And see, that's kind of a weird place for me to see. If I want to have more of a mind map for myself, I can drag and bring it up. All right, let's open that one up so we can edit it. Remember, you always double tap. And then I'm going to use a YouTube video for this one. So here, I already have one. Here's something about his life with his wife, Raisa. And in YouTube, I want to click share, like the podcast example we just had, and go to embed. Remember, the link it'll work. It'll get the person where they need to go, but you're likely to lose the reader then. So click embed. And you don't have to change any of this if you don't want to. I'm going to copy that, go back, and you can just paste that right in there and you'll be all set. Again, it responds to HTML and you don't have to know HTML. You just need to be able to find an embed code for any kind of media you want to use. And so there's 2 examples of that. Remember, you'll need to have 3 of those. I'll be looking for 3. Now that we've gone through kind of adding more of these different modes and adding more richness to it, your next thing you're going to do is you're going to select the passage you want to think more about. This could be something where you've been wanting to revise it, or you want to reflect on it, or you want to go in different directions with it. It's very open to where you want to go with that. So let's say if I want to keep working on this passage, what I can do is maybe I want to call it revision, or maybe I want to call it reflection. It's up to you, but call it something like that so it's easy for me to say, aha, that's where this person's doing that. And then wherever that is, double click on it, and just revise or reflect. This is sort of like a future oriented one where you're thinking about what do I want to do this? How am I still thinking about this? And that can be a way where you're sort of using this mind map you're creating to maybe go in different directions. Then, once you have that, probably from here, you want to add a conclusion. And in that conclusion, you want to conclude with a new passage in which you reflect in 150 words or less on your decisions throughout the essay and how this new medium affected your original essay. And that's going to be kind of really the most important part, that reflective element, because what you're really working on is, well, learning a new tool, but also thinking about what does this tool do to my thinking and how I work with things. All right, now I have this branch logic game all worked out, this NSA all set. What do I do next? First, you'll want to go to Build, and maybe make sure you're on the first one. Then click Play. And this is what yours will look like, where you'll have the text that you wrote and you have the options for someone. So you can kind of just go through it and just make sure you have the back button here. Just make sure that it works. Make sure especially that your embeds work. And see what kind of experience the user will go through. And just make sure that everything works. And if everything does, then you're almost there. You can actually go back over here. And what we're going to do then is look at how to save it. And if you take more than one setting to do this, you'll want to save this a few times just in case, just to make sure. And so the way you save with Twine is you go up to Build and you click Publish to File. And in my setup, it's going to put it right into the downloads. And then that file is what you'll be able to submit to me. You'll be able to just drag and drop it into here and click Save Changes, and you'll be all set. For the next part of this video, we're going to look at how I'm using Twine for my own research as an example. Now remember, I've been saying that all of these sort of digital tools are scalable. And what that means, there's different levels to use it. What I'm about to show you is more to show of the capacities of Twine and does not affect what my expectations are of you in doing this Twine on essay. And so we'll go ahead and look at an example of here's how it looks in Twine. And these are different areas and cards to work on. So it also works as kind of a mind map. If you have a large project and you're thinking, how does all this stuff relate to other things? And what directions do I need to go in it? Twine can be useful for that. What I've been using it for is an abstract I've been writing for a project that's going to turn into a presentation later. And I may even use this in my presentation as a resource for other people to look at. And if we go into Build and play this, I'll show you how it's looking now. Now notice this looks very different from yours. It has a white background instead of a black background. It's set up almost like a book. There are different styles you can have for Twine. This one's called Chapbook. I believe the default is called Harlow, and that affects how you type in choices and things like that. You do not have to worry about that for this assignment, but I want to show you that that's part of how Twine works, where it's not just having questions at the end or choices at the end of your text, but you can also have things brought in all throughout. Let's say if someone's thinking, well, who is this Gerard guy? Well, they see that his name is hyperlinked there and they can click on it and get a biography from the Poetry Foundation or a video by one of his biographers, Paul Mariani. I can also add in a glossary that pulls from different cards so that people can see different words that come up in here. I can have where they can see who am I? Who's writing this? Same way you have your about me in your assignment. But we can also use the decisions at the end, the choices at the end, to kind of go through and see more about it. And then I can add different media. I can have them read the commentary, have a website in there. I can have them listen to the poem, much as you bring a sound into your own essays. Or I can have them learn more about the person that the poem is about in this short video. My point here is that there's many different ways you can use this kind of tool that may be different than the assignment you're having for this week. You can use it for later projects. You can use it to think through as a mind map. How do I work on my own ideas? You can use it to present your ideas in an asynchronous way because this can be online and people can access it. So now what I'd like to conclude with though is to look at how is this assignment going to be assessed? Because this is the first time in this class where you have a rubric. So now all large assignments in this class, ones that are 100 points, are going to have a detailed rubric, and it's going to be visible to you. So when you click on the assignment, before you click Add Submission, you want to scroll down and you want to see anything under grading criteria. If it doesn't have anything under it, then it'll probably be a completion assignment. As long as it's complete, you're all set. But this time, you're going to have this rubric where I go through and give you feedback based off of how well you do on it. So what I'd like to do is unpack that rubric for you so we can be on the same page. So this is an analytic rubric, meaning that it'll have a set of criteria that have levels. And there's two kinds of levels in here. There's completion, see where it's either complete, partially complete, or incomplete. And then there's quality from exemplary to beginning to needs further reflection. What I'm going to do is, as long as something's submitted, I'm going to grade according to this. So notice that you can get 0 points on anything complete, but as far as the quality, it stops at that point. You won't get anything lower than that. So there's going to be some safety built in, especially with this first rubric. So let's unpack them one by one. The first thing is to create the Twine project. Have you successfully created the project and incorporated your past work in it? So that's going to be by completion, because if you're able to submit something to me, you've probably completed that and you'll be all set. Then we get to the first one that's on a scale of quality. We think about revisioning with Twine. So have you effectively expanded on the past writing by including that About Me passage? That includes the two components, which is a short bio about yourself and a sentence or two saying why you're interested in the topic. And then thinking about the revision or reflection you have of the chosen passage, about the quality of that on a scale. After that, we'll get back to another completion one where the integration of outside research. So you'll want to make sure that at least two of the passages have other passages coming from them that have a citation. So let's say if you just forget citations, that'd be incomplete. Let's say you get one citation, that'll be a partial complete. And let's say you have them both, that'll be complete. I am not concerned at all what citation style you have. I'm not going to look at it at that granular level. I'm just going to see, do you have it there? And you'll be all set with that too. After that, we get on to integration of external media. So what we need to do there is make it multimodal. Remember we talked about before where there's different modes like visuals, hearing something, more than just text. And so that's going to be looking at, have you done that in 3 passages, and do they enhance the project engagement and depth? So ask yourself, whenever you're adding in this different media, like a YouTube video, why am I adding that? What does it do to enrich the work I've already done? Because I'm going to be evaluating it in that way. But don't worry, you get a chance to tell me what your decisions were and why you made those decisions so that you can help your score there by your reflection. So you need to make sure you have that final reflection card that summarizes your decisions and discusses how the new medium has affected your original work. And so that's also your chance to kind of give a defense of what you're doing here and what you're doing here. That's your chance to say, I made these decisions because of X, Y, and Z. And you want to think about how does this affect what you're doing? You want to kind of give an analysis of your change from your previous work to your current project. And in many ways, this is the most important part of this project as a whole. It has the same weight as this one. They're both 25 points, but this one, if done well, should help your other ones because I'll be able to look at that card and it'll affect my decisions when I'm giving you feedback on earlier parts of this rubric. So as always, feel free to reach out to me if you're confused about how to use the tool or have any questions for me of how to be successful in this project. And I'm really looking forward to it. I love seeing other students' Twine projects. They're really a delight.